to use the chat function to talk to us, or maybe answer questions that Dina might ask down there as we get through it. I will be monitoring it. I'm assuming Dina will as well. So one way or another, we'll try and answer your questions. So feel free to use the chat, and we will get to all of the questions that we can as we go through this. So again, welcome. I just wanted to let you know that SCORE has the largest network of free mentoring services that are available probably throughout the country. There are about 10,000 other volunteers just like myself and Dina that do what we do, and it's all free. There are some 240 chapters throughout the country. The SCORE Cleveland chapter is one of the top chapters. In 22 was actually chapter of the year. So we're very proud of that. Anyway, just to let you know our mission and our vision and our values, the biggest part is that our mission is to foster small, vibrant business communities throughout Northeast Ohio. And you'll see in a minute, we're in around 7 counties around the lake. And those are the areas that we serve. But we aim to give everybody the information and to work with them on the things that they need to start and grow and flourish in your businesses. We always say you shouldn't have to go it alone. You should always have a mentor or mentors. You should always have a banker or bankers. You should always have people that can help you out to grow your business. If you try to do it alone, you're going to just be overwhelmed. So work with SCORE mentors, and you'll see in a minute how we can do that. So, you know, SCORE's for everybody. We are very diverse. Our mentors, our volunteers are very diverse. We try to match you up with people that you can relate to, people that understand your business, people that have the expertise that you're looking for as well. So just a very quick kind of self-plug. In 2022, as I said, we were chapter of the year. Not only that, we started or helped to start around 500 businesses. We also helped to create almost 810 jobs. And you can see that we did almost 8,000 individual services. That was either people came to our webinars, or we worked one-on-one with them, or in some way or another, we were involved with any particular client at any given time. So we are a service arm of the SBA, and they fund us in part. A lot of the funding that we need to run our organization the way we do is actually raised on the outside by our fundraisers, but the Small Business Administration does help us out some. And the nice thing about it is the connections that we have to the SBA. It's just a good way to get in the door for you. It's a good way for us to get referrals from them on people that are looking for the kind of help that we can provide. And then I just wanted to give you kind of a self-promoting plug here, if you don't mind. In September 12th of 2023, we are putting together a network event for SCORE clients. We expect somewhere between 150 and 200. It's open to the first 200 that register. If you are a SCORE client and are in business and you would like to put together a table in which you can talk to all of the other people that are in the room. We're going to be at the Rockside Road Holiday Inn, so it's a really nice ballroom. We'll have hors d'oeuvres, and actually a cash bar will be open for that as well. And there's a registration. I'm just going to go to that really quick so you can see what that looks like. I thought I was going to go to that really quick. Let me go back one slide. And let me hit that link a little bit better. Well, for some reason that link is not working, but I can get it somewhere else. So this is our event schedule. People that have tables will be able to set that up. We will have some very specific networking programming going around, and we are also going to be putting on 2 workshops coming right up, as you can see, August 9th and August 17th, and it is called the Networking Playbook. We will be talking about preparing and excelling at networking events, but not only just small networking events like this one, but larger things like conventions and areas that most of our clients will be involved in. The first one is going to be how to prepare, what to do, how to work it. And the second one is really going to be grabbing attention at the event. So these two are coming up. There are registration links. I'm going to go back to our website. And if you'll bear with me one more second, I'm pulling up the website live. Two things I want you to see, that there is this link, and this will take you to a landing page that talks about the event. And I'm just going to go back so that you can go to that landing page, and it'll give you everything you need to know, including all of the registration. The last thing I want to tell you about is registering to find a local mentor here. So it's set up whereby you can just go in here, give us some information. We will take that information. We will put it to our client assignment team. Our client assignment team will read the information that you give us and try and hook you up with the mentor that has the most kind of relevant experience that you'll need for us to help you work on your business. So now let me just go back to this. So if you get a chance, and I'll put this in the chat in a few minutes, go to score.org/Cleveland, find a mentor, look at the event, all the things that you might need to know, and even look at what other workshops are coming up that you can register for. Very important. I think you'll find it very helpful as well. And that's all I have, Dina. So I'm going to stop sharing mine and introduce you to Dina. Dina Davis is a SCORE subject matter expert and has been working with us for several years. She is an expert in human resources and other areas that we're going to be talking about tonight. Dina, I'll let you tell them what you do, and I will be managing on the chat. And if you need to get on the chat, feel free. If any questions you want to ask directly, Dina, put them, let me know, and I'll monitor that.
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Bob, and much appreciated. I'm on year 3, by the way, of SCORE volunteer. Yeah, it seems like yesterday. Sure thing. So I'm Dina Davis again. I am, and to Bob's point, I'm an HR professional. I like to call myself an expert at this point. I've been doing this for about 20 plus years. I won't date myself too much, but it's basically been my entire life work. So a couple of things that I like to share about HR as we go into this conversation is, hopefully after you see what I have for you that helps you to plan around your HR function, you will see that it's way more than the administration that we tend to think that it is. And that's really what I love so much about doing these types of presentations, is being able to show the potential of HR and how it can help to leverage your business. So without further ado, I will get our slideshow up here and get us started. Enough about me, right? All right, let me get into slide mode here. All right, it's just waiting for the technology to keep up here, and I'll just duplicate the slideshow here. All right. So again, when we think about HR, we all have a point of reference that we use when we think of what HR is. It's, where are the forms, and how do I fill out this form, and when are they going to schedule the lunches, right? So hopefully we have helped to evolve that perspective over the years. And as a small business owner, HR for you, to be very honest, it's not very different than it is for large companies. We all have the same responsibilities as it relates to legal compliance, and our employees want the same things from us regardless if we're a small business or a very large business. The only thing that really differs is the scale. So, whereas a larger business may have more volume of certain things, a small business may not have as much volume, but they still have the same types of things that they have to think about. So as you go into this presentation, again, keep your mind open, because HR is a lot deeper than we think at times. All right, so we'll keep going here. All right, so that's a little bit about me. Like I said, I've been doing this my whole life, so if there's anything you want to know, I'm a good open book there. But one of the things I like to start with, and I love this slide because as a business owner, and particularly a small business owner, which I am also, so when I think about what are the needs of my business, it's not just one thing. I'm thinking about everything. I'm thinking about sales and marketing and funding and growing my business and leadership development and the laws and compliance, like accounting and bookkeeping. All of these things are common that new business, especially small business owners, we're going to wear multiple hats oftentimes when we're getting started. So when we think about this as a business owner, the talent, the legal compliance, the HR stuff, it's just part of what you are focusing on. So as you start to strategize in terms of how you want to run your business and how your business is going to scale, there will likely become a point where you would like to then have someone dedicated to various functions that can take on those responsibilities for you. And I just mentioned this very early on because a lot of times I see when we do business plans, we're very good in the finance projections and looking at the business models and looking at some of the marketing opportunities and sales opportunities, but we forget to add the HR component into it. It just becomes this one org chart in the business plan, and it doesn't really have a whole lot of life to it. But it also can be one of the things that if we're not planning properly can be the biggest bottleneck to you achieving those business objectives. So again, that's one of the things I love so much about my job is it really is an accelerator in what you're trying to do in the business. It's always going to require people. So that's where what we do is we match up the people with the business. And so human resources is a function, not a person. You'll hear me say that multiple times, and that's one way that it's really helpful for you to think about HR. It's not a set of tasks. It's not one person. It's an entire function, just like sales is a function and finance is a function and marketing is a function. We are a function. Now, again, how that function and the duties within it are prescribed is it depends on your size and your expertise and your comfort level. But when you think about human resources, there's a whole life cycle of things that we manage as it relates to the talent. So as a department, we're going to be focused on things like organizational development and culture. What is your organization? What does the structure look like? What does career progression look like? How does leadership interact with its teams and one another? And what kind of environment do we have for the people that work with us? And is it one that people even want to work in, right? So compensation and benefits, we know that pretty clear that that's an HR function. We look to make sure that compensation is fair. We look to make sure it's equitable and that we have competitive benefits to be able to attract and retain talent. Recruiting and hiring is a big HR function, which a lot of us are familiar with. And again, that's making sure we have the right people to do the right job at the right time. And, there's I call it an art and a science to recruiting. And, if you have worked with a good recruiter, the difference between, when you're working with someone who really knows how to attract the right type of talent and to source properly versus someone who's just kind of looking at keywords. So with all of these, there's depth and breadth that one can have as it relates to their skills in this function. Performance management, training, all of these things are falling under the HR umbrella. And if you look over to the right, this is the employee life cycle. And so the employee life cycle is any point in an employee's experience with you, HR is going to touch that employee one way, shape, or form. So, there's a kind of a little saying that HR is there from the cradle to the grave, right? But in a way it is, because from the very moment that we find someone that could be interested in our opportunity, when I'm reaching out to a candidate and saying, hey, Bob, I think you have some really great skills that you might be a good mentor for Score, right? So from that very first interaction to the time when maybe Bob decides to, retire and move on and move to Florida, I'm going to be interacting with Bob in some sort of way as an HR professional, making sure that he's set up for success he has what he needs, and that things that we're offering like pay and benefits are competitive. And again, we have a culture that people can thrive in and that they actually want to work and be a part of. And those are I call it again, the art and the science, because there's some creativity, but there's also a lot of really good thinking and practices that we employ at these different stages of the life cycle. All right, now HR as in itself is very dynamic. And HR people tend to be very specialized in their areas of expertise. And this may be a new view for a lot of you that may or may not have had a lot of exposure or working with HR partners. So this is why I tell you this, and why I shared that initial slide, is because not all HR people have the same expertise. So HR is not necessarily the same in one company as it is in another. What I mean by that is we still have the same responsibilities, like we said, the legal compliance and the life cycle management, but how that person is employed or deployed is very different. So there's certain roles where I'm a strategist and I'm thinking about things like, again, the function of HR. HR itself is an operation when you start to get into larger volumes of transactions that you need to manage. And then you have multiple systems and you have integrations and you have, all these different things you have to be responsible for. And that's more on the strategic level, which is where I tend to play more in the space at this point in my career. That's the talent and the people development. That's the part that really is looking at how HR can help accelerate the business. So what I mean by that, and I call that a growth enabler, and these are also what I also call underutilized HR, because a lot of times we're very familiar with the bottom half of this pyramid, which are the administrative tasks, but the growth enablers and the things that really move a business forward are in that top half of the pyramid. But like I said, not all HR people specialize in all aspects of what's in this pyramid. But that strategy is going to be something like this. I have an organization, this is a real life example. I have an organization right now. They are set to double their size in the next year. Okay, that's fine. Well, what's that mean, right? So there's going to be double the hiring. There's going to be double the leaders, double the benefits, double everything, right? So what I'm doing right now in anticipation for us doubling our size is setting up everything within the HR function to be able to accommodate growth, so that when we are ready to then go hire 10, 12, 15 more people, that we don't have to wait for HR to catch up, because I'm already ready. I know what the profiles are. I have my recruiting sourcing. I have all of my things ready to help that organization move forward. Now, if they would not have included me in this planning and waited till the last minute and said, oh my God, Dina, we need to hire 15 people, and I have not had the opportunity to build out the system as I am, then I would become the bottleneck, and it would be very difficult for us to be able to grow and scale without making sure those people components are aligned. That next layer down is also my baby, I call it, the HR business partner. So that's, again, where we look at things like, I have a client right now, again, which we have 3 new leaders, and 3 new leaders with 3 new expectations and goals that they have set, and I'm helping them to create a change plan. So how do we communicate this to the staff? How do we help them to be successful, but make sure that everyone is moving along in this journey and not just being imposed on? So again, when new leaders come in, it's very natural to have changes, but it's important for us to really lay out a good game plan for that to make sure things run smoothly. HR operations, all of our systems and processes. Modern day HR, and when I say modern day, I'm talking like the last 10 to 15 years at least, we do not touch paper. We do not touch paper. We have paper, meaning like electronic forms and things of that nature, but most of us never see a stitch of paper because it's all managed through HRIS systems nowadays. And again, regardless of your size, this is the practice that exists, and particularly with COVID, of course, having to do everything remotely, that really accelerated a lot of these types of things. So this is why I tell you, like, HR is this very dynamic field. And knowing that, I've done technology implementations where I've had to work with the IT folks and I've had to implement a whole new system and figure out all the business processes and the workflows and the reporting and those types of things and that are related to it. So it can get pretty complex in that operation space. The two areas that we're most familiar with are at the bottom, and those are where most people are going to start with their HR function, which is compliance and admin. Compliance is making sure we don't go to jail, right, or get sued or fined, which is, I call it the scary HR, which, to me, I don't like to lead with that. It's certainly something we are always mindful of, but, there's so many different ways to do things the right way. You don't have to be afraid to run your business. And so I'm not the scary HR person. I'm more like, well, let's figure it out, And then the HR admin, that's all of our record keeping and documentation that we're required to have, which is usually tied to the compliance. So those two things, like I said, at the bottom are our must-haves. Those are the fundamentals, and those help us to mitigate risk. And you as a small business owner, those are definitely the areas that you'll start with. And I have some resources here to show you how to do that here in the next couple of slides. But if somebody's going to shoot the shot, it's going to be me. So if you're like me and you want to be ambitious and you want your business to grow and you're thinking short and long term in the same thought, then some of these other aspects of HR will help you to move your business forward. Just a quick example, and I like to share stories with some of this too, is I actually had a client I worked with beginning of last year, actually in 2022, and her business was bottlenecked because she did not have HR. She had more than enough work coming in, was doing fabulous. She knocked it out the park. Her business could not grow because she did not have people. So she was having to turn work down and literally put all growth plans of her business on ice until we could work with her and help her, one, hire. But then when you hire someone, it's still going to take them a few months at least to get acclimated and to become fully productive. So, if she had to put her growth business and turn hundreds of thousands of dollars down because she was not ready with her growth plan, and we had to put everything growth related on ice until we could kind of catch up with the people stuff. So that's why I say think short and long term. And, don't be afraid of some of these more advanced HR types of discussions. And if you're not ready for them today, that's fine. But just know that at some point you will be, and you want to always be thinking about the future. So again, you don't bottleneck your growth. So this is a nice, I love this slide also. And this is a good one for you to keep as well, because this is exactly on that point that I was just making. As you grow, your HR function will grow. So at the foundation, when you're building a business, that's the foundational HR of the compliance and admin that I talked about. And that's really where, again, you're getting things organized so that you make sure that you're paying taxes and that you're doing I-9s for verification of, Department of Homeland Security doesn't come knock on your door looking for, thinking you have illegal immigrants working for you or things of that nature. So that's the kind of thing that keeps you out of trouble, but it also has set you up with a good foundation for growth as your business moves through the various stages of business. When you get more into a run capacity, that's where, again, we start to operationalize HR. I start to add different systems in place. I'm looking at integration. I'm looking at efficiencies, training, development, and what we call an HRIS, which is our global system where we house all of the employee data. When you're in a growth phase, which like my client I just described, they're actually a little bit between run and grow, but they're very quickly into that growth phase where we're, like I said, within the next year going to be doubling. That's when I'm talking about continuous improvement, leadership development, expand and leave. I'm looking at incentive compensation because we want to reward people for their performance. I'm also looking at team building and culture and who we are and how do we keep the great aspects of us being a 5-person team intact when we're a 50-person team, right? Like these are things that you have to think about because it doesn't just organically happen. Some things do, absolutely, but most things don't. And so this is where the growth side of HR comes into play. And then there's those times where people are looking, some people build a business to sell it, right? So, and some people want to run that business until they decide they want to retire one day. So there are sunsetting types of activities that we help to facilitate as well if a business is in that stages of their evolution. So remember this slide, take a picture, kind of refer back to it, but this will help you to figure out what needs to happen at each stage of your business. So as you're growing, HR can grow with you. And then keep in mind again that it's not just one person sometimes. Sometimes you may have a couple of different people that have expertise in different areas or different phases to really do some of your tasks. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen people do is, and this is, unfortunately, I've made a nice living doing this, but I've made a really nice living fixing things from people who were not ready for the next level. So what I mean is they were really good at the build level and they had an HR person that helped at that level. But then the company took off or they acquired or something happened to get them very quickly into that run and grow. And that person just wasn't equipped with the skills to be able to move that organization forward. And it created a lot of issues. So again, just look at it that way. We're all very great and talented in our own right. And there's certainly a need for all levels of skill, but you may need to sometimes bring in different people with different types of skills, depending on where you are with your HR function in your phases of your business. All right, and so these again are some of the common pitfalls that I talk about with hiring HR is again thinking that we're admin only, we underestimate the complexities of HR, or we rely on sales reps and other people to understand HR needs. So things like that where, oh, I'm going to go talk to this company and they said they're going to do my payroll for me. Okay, well, that's great. Well, what about this, that, and the third, and the secondary, and there's still a whole piece that you have to manage, even if you are outsourcing parts of your HR. So don't rely on the sales rep because that's their job is to sell you and to tell you all the great things they can do, but it may not necessarily translate to your organization the same way, or you may not be clear with the scope of what you have to actually be responsible for, even with hiring them, because you can't just walk away from it. You still have some responsibility. And or you find, again, people with not someone without the right level of expertise that you're looking for. And some ways to mitigate that is, again, HR is a function, not a person. Think of it that way, just like every other function of your business. HR will grow and fluctuate as your business needs change. Sales reps, anyone you talk to, ADP, Paylocity, the list goes on and on and on, they are sales reps. They're great, and I'm not going to take away from them, and I'm not going to say that you should not ever talk with them, because I think you should. But just understand that they are there to sell you a product, and they're there to sell you a service. So it's up to you to really decide what is going to work best for you. And again, you still are going to need internal expertise in some capacity to be able to manage that vendor or make sure you understand what your requirements are. And so there is a great resource, and actually Ohio is one of the best. I've supported all of US, so I'm pretty much familiar with this level of resource for all 50 plus states. Actually, I have international experience as well. But I share this because the Ohio site is actually a very good site. It's very easy to navigate. It's very easy to find what you need and immediately go out and bookmark this page. It's ohio.gov, and they have a site. It's called Hiring Your First or Next Employee. And it gives you all of those foundational, which if you remember the bottom of the pyramid, the compliance and the admin of HR, it gives you all of those things that you'll need to make sure you do whenever you're hiring someone into your organization. So it will walk you through those. It has links, it has resources. Again, one of the best by far that I've seen across the country. Kudos to our representatives who put the site together for us, because it is quite comprehensive and excellent. And, and again, like I said, I've worked in all 50 states, and I don't remember every single state, as to a T, but if you go to their Department of Labor for that state. They'll usually have links to something very similar to this that will help guide you in what you need. Reason why I mention that is because most of you are starting your business in Ohio, but keep in mind that if you hire an employee, the laws follow the employee based on where they live. So if I'm an Ohio-based employer and I hire an employee in Pennsylvania, I am now responsible for compliance and taxes as it's prescribed in Pennsylvania. So just always remember the laws follow the employee. So that may be something for you to think about, particularly in the short term as you look to hire, because if you hire someone that lives outside of Ohio, you are now responsible for the laws and the compliance of that state in which the employee lives. There's no way around it. And that's why sometimes where people are like, anyone can work remote and they can work wherever they want and they can do it. It's not that simple. Because again, like I said, the laws follow the employee. So if you're willing to take on that risk and you're capable of navigating those waters, by all means, right? But if you're not, just do understand that there are things that you could have to be responsible for that you may or may not be prepared for if you hire someone outside of Ohio. All right, and this I'm going to go through really quick because this I covered a lot of these things, but when you're in the foundational side of HR, I kind of broke it down by some of the different parts of HR, like I talked about before, like organizational development, some of the HR systems and processes and things like that. But I'll just point out a few things here for you in our dissension. So a couple of things there is, for organizational development, a couple great resources I recommend, again, are the Department of Labor. If you go to the dol.gov, they have it set up where you can get links directly to all of the states' Department of Labor sites. So anything you want to know about wage and hour compliance, if there's any kind of special holidays you have to pay them, leave benefits, anything like that, you'll find that on that state's Department of Labor site. So that's always a great one. I recommend that you earmark. Another is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, where you can get salary ranges. So they do, actually, the government has a lot of great information, believe it or not. They have a lot of great information in terms of salary ranges, forecast on certain types of projections of roles in terms of how much or how many of these people are we going to need. They call it a forecast. You know, they have all these different resources you can look at, gender and how many people have this degree, and like anything you want to know. Like you could really go crazy. Sometimes I do, because I'm a little bit of a data nerd, so I like things like that. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics is also another great site. There's one I didn't put on this side, but I also use one. It's called ONET. ONET is a great resource I use for salary data as well, to be able to compare and contrast. And I usually will look at several different sites to see what my consistency looks like of a particular function or a particular job, and then considering the geographic location. For HR administration, that's again, your payroll is going to probably be one of your biggest things that you want to make sure that you do right from the beginning. Set your payroll up right. Keep your records clean and keep notes in everything that you do, because that is one area where a lot of employers get tripped up. Department of Labor, again, and the particular part of that, which is called wage and hour, that's another area which I told you to earmark here just a second ago, because a lot of times we're like, oh, well, I'm just going to make them hourly. I'm just going to make them salary. We don't just kind of make them hourly or salary. There actually are rules that you have to follow that determine if a job is hourly or salary. So it will spell that out. It's called a duties test. And you go through the duties test, which still may have some gray areas, which you can consult with, someone like myself or, someone in the compensation field. But you want to make sure that you're following that and you have some logic behind those classifications, because payroll and misclassifying employees between hourly, salary, contract, and employee, those are like the top things that get small businesses tripped up, and they can be very costly. And that's one, again, I don't want to be the scary HR, but there's a lot of fines involved with those. And the other bad part about it is if you get a complaint, they don't just look at one person, they look at everybody. So if you get an employee that complains that I wasn't paid properly, they're not just going to come in and look at Bob. They're going to look at everybody that you've ever paid for a period of time to determine if you've paid them correctly or not, which is why and how their fines become so generous. I'll just be diplomatic there. Just recruiting, couple things for you to know about affirmative action. Now, again, there's been some recent things with affirmative action. It hasn't quite made it down to the employment world yet, but the employment world is not a quota system. So just know that. And again, I could do a whole nother piece on that if anybody's ever interested. But affirmative action still applies in a lot of organizations because there is a compliance for federal contractors. So if you're doing more than 50K, and in some cases even more than 20K of federal government contracting, you may have to comply with affirmative action. That could change on a dime. You could not be complying today and you get a $50,000, $60,000 government contract tomorrow, and then boom, you now have to comply. So keep your eye out for that. And same thing with the Equal Pay Act. That's another area that has got a lot of legislation there as well. Where making sure that people are paid equally and fair for the work they do. Offer letters, a lot of things going on there for you to be mindful of are state drug test laws, of course, with all the recreational marijuana referendums throughout the country. There are some states that do allow employers to discriminate. I'll say that quotely, with people that if you're in a state and it's legal to recreationally, most employers can still deny employment because of a drug test. Some laws in some states require that you cannot do that, or you can't do that. And I'll say that they can't require, but that's my point. Is it's a state by state type of thing. So just be mindful, particularly if you're hiring outside of the state, and if you're hiring inside of Ohio, pay close attention to next year's election, where it appears that recreational marijuana is going to be on the docket, and you want to know if you are doing drug tests, how you're going to handle that. Employment verifications is another area because you may have people that are going for mortgages, financing, child support, all kinds of things that people verify employment. So knowing how you're going to handle those types of requests. And again, I talked a little bit about Equal Pay Act. And again, I'm going through these very quickly, but they're all very important things that you could encounter at any point. One of the biggest things too, I mentioned verification, that is called I-9. The I-9 is where we submit your documents, where we say, I need your driver's license or your social security card or your passport or whatever to verify that you are who you are. And that gets submitted through E-Verify. So E-Verify is another site that I recommend you get signed up for. Because as an employer, if you're hiring people, you do have to do an I-9 and submit that within the first 3 days of employment. Payroll taxes, minimum wage, just know what it is. And that's not as big of an issue in today's world because most people are paying well beyond that because of, cost of labor, not cost of living. That's another discussion for another day. But the other thing I recommend, again, make sure you keep a payroll adjustment log. Anything that you change, anything that you do for payroll, keep a log, keep a spreadsheet, keep a Word doc, whatever it is. It will help save your life, trust me. And keep notes on it. And you don't have to write a book, right? But just make sure you know what you did and why you did it and when you did it. Because if somebody comes back 18 months from now and says, hey, you didn't pay me properly in January 2021, then the burden of proof is yours. Unemployment tax is another thing to make sure you're familiar with and keep up with, and that's going to be handled through your payroll processor. HIPAA at the bottom has to do with privacy, so you cannot share private health information with others that don't have a need to know. So just in casual conversation, if somebody's like, hey, like so-so sprained their ankle, like boom, there you go. You actually technically have a HIPAA violation because you shared personal health information. So You as an employer are responsible for that. If anyone shares anything with you, you should not be sharing that with anyone typically, other than if you become first aware, then HR. Other than that, again, you have to be very careful, and everybody needs to be trained on what to do that with that information when they get it. Personnel inspections, people in most states have the right to see or inspect their personnel file. Again, it looks a little different in today's world because most of our files are digitized. Again, we don't touch paper like we used to, but that could come up for you. And just knowing what your records retention, because with all of these files, the I-9 and all these different things, there are different retention schedules where you need to keep those documents, and then you have to shred them after a certain amount of time, or if they're digitized, you have to archive them. But you have to keep them retained for a certain amount of time, and you could be called, or any of those documents could be called up for any reason in that time frame. So again, like I said, not to bore you with all of the details, but just kind of flip through here if there's anything else I didn't touch on, just to get us wrapped up here. The only other thing I'll just say again is just, keep an eye if you're growing, because there are different leave requirements. Like FMLA is not the only leave out there. And like I said, if you're hiring folks in different states, there are some leaves that are required if you have one employee. So just, know what your leave laws are. And risk management, just make sure that you're always checking in with your benefits package, like if you have a broker or somebody that you use, because your benefits, again, there's sometimes things that are very inexpensive to offer that could provide additional protections for your business and or your employees. And we went through all of that, and that's where I'm going to land my plane here. So again, hopefully that you've seen that HR, it's not just pushing paper. Again, there are a lot of pieces and parts. We have to stay very close to law and legal requirements. We also have to be, the type of person that can sense and see things within an organization and adjust our function and our processes efficiently and effectively as well. So as you grow, again, things become more voluminous, which adds complexity, but we're all kind of doing the same things. And just again, in closing, is HR people, we do tend to specialize. So as you grow and you get beyond your areas of comfort or expertise, just know that sometimes you may have to consult with more than one person to really get the type of experience or the breadth or the depth of experience that you're looking for. But hopefully that gives you some insight into HR, and certainly willing to take any questions anyone has.
So I do have one request in the chat, and that is, can she see the last slide again?
The last slide about Run and Grow?
I'm assuming so. Or maybe it was a slide that you went through and she asked for the one before that, but I don't know. Teresa, do you want to, Tricia, do you want to put it into the chat which slide you were looking for?
I can go back slowly if she wants to point out which one.
It's this slide.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay. I don't see. Okay, here's one. In the state of Ohio, is it legal to deny employment from a failed drug test?
Well, so first of all, and I have to always put this disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, so I will tell you what the regulations give you permission to do. And I have to couch that so it's not considered legal advice. But so with drug tests, there are each state, again, barring things like the marijuana referendums that I just described, an employer can deny anyone for just about any reason. Believe it or not, if someone has a positive alcohol test, we can deny to hire them. Even though alcohol is legal and it's, very socially acceptable, if I'm a company and alcohol is not part of my culture, or I have safety concerns, or you're going to drive a truck or what have you, I can deny you on things like that because of the risk that it has to the business. So that's a very complicated question, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight into that. You certainly can. but you want to make sure that you're not violating someone's health. So like if someone has a prescription for Vicodin, again, that could potentially show up as a narcotic in their drug test, but I have to make sure I have ways to handle that and not deny them for something that was medically prescribed. So that can get pretty complicated, but the short answer is yes. The correct answer is it depends.
Check with a lawyer.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So far, that's it. Can you go back to the one slide that showed the state website? Because there's something I wanted to bring up about that too.
Yeah.
There you go. This is an excellent website, by the way. And if you look at the top, just where it says ohio.gov and then residence, tourism, jobs, business, there's some great tools for you in business, things that you can download, other resources for you that I would suggest that, if you want to just learn a bit about what's going on in Ohio with business, go there and check it out.
Yes, Ohio did a great job, and it's very easy and intuitive, I find, to find information. And like you said, the communications are great. They're easy to read. Again, I've been on pretty much every state site, and Ohio is definitely one of the best that I've seen.
Yeah, I think
good job.
Right. Let's see, anything else? Any other questions? Nothing in the chat? Okay. Well, then, hey, I look forward to seeing you all on some more of these workshops. We've got a few more coming up in the legal series that we're in correctly right now. Also, just want to remind you again that networking event that we're doing, I think is going to be really, really excellent. I think it'll be a lot of fun on top of everything else, but it should be a great way for you to meet people and to talk about it. And if you're concerned about being a good networker or getting out and talking to people directly, stay tuned and get into the workshops on networking. We talk a little bit about that as well. So if there are no other questions, somebody lives in Toledo. Can I get a mentor in Cleveland? I think you can. I think what you need to do, again, is go on to our website, and there is an area that you can write what your questions are and what concerns you have or what you want to know about. Just make sure that when you do that you ask for a mentor in Cleveland, and one way or another that'll get to us. Typically it goes by zip code, but in this particular case, I think if you make a request directly, you can do that. And that's all I have. So I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Again, I look forward to seeing you on other workshops, and thanks for coming. Take care all.
Sure thing.
And thanks, Dina. Wonderful.